is session 10. Audition 2. Mechanism of hearing, auditory pathway, and sound localization. Introduction. In this chapter, the major issues underlying audition are discussed in relation to mechanism of hearing, auditory pathway, and sound location. This includes the technique on how the hair controls the intensity of sounds, frequencies of pitch to produce audition, how the brain combines the input of our two ears to determine the direction and distance of sounds was also discussed. Objectives. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to 1. Describe mechanisms of the human hair. 2. Label the parts of the hair, indicating their functions. And 3. Explain the mechanism of hearing. Pre-test. Mention the parts of the hair. 2. Identify the functional parts of the human eye. 3. Describe the physiology of human sight. Content. Mechanism of hearing. The hair is the organ of hearing. The outer hair protrudes away from the head and is shaped like a cup to direct sound towards the tympanic membrane, which transmits vibrations to the inner ear through a series of small bones. The inner ear, or cochlea, is a spiral-shaped chamber covered internally by nerve fibers that react to the vibrations and transmit impulses to the brain via the auditory nerve. From there, the sounds travel to the thalamus and then to the primary auditory area located in the temporal bone of the cortex. The brain combines the inputs of our two ears to determine the direction and distance of sounds. More so, because of the structure of the inner ear, sounds of different frequencies stimulate the basilar membrane at different places along its length, allowing discrimination of pitch. Additionally, the greater the amplitude of the wave created in the endonymph, the greater the stimulation of the auditory receptors in the air cells in the spiral organ, enabling perception of volume. The human ear can perceive frequencies from 16 cycles per second, which is a very deep bass, to 28,000 cycles per second, which is a very high pitch. In addition, the human ear can detect pitch changes as small as 0.03% of the original frequency in some frequency ranges. Some people have perfect pitch, which is the ability to map a tone precisely on the muscle scale. Bats and dolphins can detect frequencies higher than 100,000 cycles per second. Auditory pathway and sound localization. The intensity of a sound wave is coded by the number of receptors in the organ of Corti that fire. Low intensity sound stimulates only a few receptors. High intensity sound stimulates many receptors. The frequency of the sound wave is apparently coded in at least 2 ways. First, sound waves of different frequencies stimulate receptor cells at different places along the organ of Corti. Higher frequency waves stimulate the organ of Corti close to the oval window. Lower frequency waves stimulate it further along the cochlea, except for very low frequencies. Second, The frequency of the sound waves is duplicated to some extent in the frequency of the signals sent to the brain by the auditory receptors. Only at lower frequencies in each neuron able to signal at the same frequency the sound wave. At higher frequencies, decoding of frequency is achieved by volleys of neural impulse of different groups of neurons which reflect the frequency of the sound wave. Not all sounds travel this complete route from outer ear to cochlea. Some sounds are transmitted through the bones of the head directly to the cochlear fluid. We hear ourselves speak and eat largely through bone conduction hearing. This is an important consideration in diagnosing heat problems. People who have suffered damage to the hearing apparatus of the human ear can hear bone-conducted sounds fairly well, but not hair-bone sounds. People with damage to the auditory nerve, nerve deafness, have difficulty hearing either type of sound. World without sound, that is soundless world. Deafness is a state in which hearing is not possible. The defect of the following part in the ear may cause deafness: eardrum, cochlea, ear ossicles, and auditory nerve. Have you thought of the reasons for the disorders of these organs? Any infection in eustachian tube will spread to the middle ear. The eardrum may become damaged too by an infection in the auditory canal. In many instances, this results in damages in the middle and external ear leading to deafness. How does excessive noise, strong blows on the cheek, pointed objects entering the auditory canal, and attack from insects affect hearing? Defect in the brain, auditory nerve, and cochlea are also reasons for deafness. How will you save the ear from deafness? Summary. In this lecture, we have learned the mechanism of hearing, auditory pathway, and sound localization in the field of sensation and awareness. That attribution theory seeks to understand how and the process involved in arriving at inferences about the causes of behavior. The covariation model embraces multiple observations relying on consistency information, consensus information, and distinctiveness. This is the end of study session 10. Thanks for listening.